Welcome to the first annual Alpharetta Freshman AP Government Review Online. It's me, Coach Dasinger. I'm going to help you guys get your first day. I know you're all freaking out. Your moms and dads are probably looking over your shoulder right now. Hey mom, hey dad, relax. They're going to be fine. Just let them study on their own. I'm sure they're going to get an A. And if they don't get an A, that's all right. We're going to work with them. It's just the first test. But I want you all to do as well as you can, so I have created you a little study guide here. So if you haven't got it yet, the first thing you should go is go to my plan book, look under the day of the test, and get one of these bad boys. Top 10 topics, okay? Top 10 topics on this test, and you all need to know what they are, all right? So make sure you guys get that down, go on plan book. I'm going to go through them real quick. Shouldn't take more than about 5 to 8 minutes, so get ready to go. Oh, hold on. It's not me anymore. It's Pork the Pig. That's right. We're going to have a little guest star. His name's Pork. He's just going to chill here for a bit. Let's go over these top 10 topics, though. We'll put Pork down. All right, number one. This is about the Constitution, right? But before we get to the Constitution, we need to look at the historical and philosophical underpinnings behind them, okay? So I'm actually going to start with the weaknesses of the Articles first, the historical reason why we have the Constitution. Understand we came from a monarch, and right after the monarch, we went with, in 1981, we came up with this thing called the Articles of Confederation. It was essentially like the opposite of a monarch. It was this loose friendship league, and what we talked about, what you need to know about is it was a huge, huge failure. All it did, that was good, I guess, was give people freedom. But that people abuse that freedom, right? So there's some logistical weaknesses, and then there's just this idea of everyone having freedom and what happens, and that was, what kind of led to Shays' Rebellion. So let's talk about some logistical weaknesses, though. First and foremost, couldn't tax. All right? Now, everyone hates taxes, but taxes are necessary for some things, right? You want to have an army. You want to provide defense for your country, and without taxing, you can't provide that army. And so we didn't have an army. Right? We couldn't pay our army, and so this was a huge, huge problem, right? No army, and the reason we didn't have an army is because we couldn't tax. Another thing is we didn't have a strong economy. Like, we didn't have a very good economy. And then the reasons why, there's a couple of reasons why, right? And you should all know them. Write them down now, but I'll tell you. Couldn't regulate interstate commerce. We had states competing against each other. Couldn't regulate foreign commerce. Right? Every state had their own currency. It was like Disney World, where you got the Disney dollars. You remember that little analogy where you want to go to QT after Disney World and you pay, you drop your Donald Duck buck at the gas station and they won't take it, right? That was what was happening in the 1700s is people would go to Georgia, they'd have Georgia dollars, they wouldn't take it. Really, really difficult to have a strong economy that way. And so we know there's all these weaknesses, but we can't change them because another weakness is you had to have a unanimous decision to amend. Unanimous decision is a terrible idea, especially in the 1700s when you're on herd animals trying to get somewhere. People were dying left and right. There was the Oregon Trail. People get bit by a snake and it was over, right? So they could never change them. 9/13 to pass a law that was really too high of a percentage as well. So those are some weaknesses, right? And these weaknesses are exposed with Shays' Rebellion. And definitely need to know Shays' Rebellion. It's going to be on your test. It exposes the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. Essentially, Massachusetts had some farmers that were getting a little salty about taxes, is like you guys like to say. They got hype. They went after the government, and no one was there really to stop them because we didn't have an army. And so it was just Massachusetts, if you will, army, militia versus these farmers, and it was a way, way too long of a drawn-out process because there's no army there. And so Shays' Rebellion reveals the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. We realize it's time for a change, right? So we want to make this change with history in mind, but also philosophy in mind. And so number 2 is English philosophers and the consent of the governed. Understand this. Both Locke and Hobbes believed in the social contract, believed that the people should consent to be governed. Now, Hobbes thought they should consent and give everything up so one person can rule over them because we were all kind of evil. And Locke thought we were all pretty much good, and so we would consent just to have a very loose federal government rule over us just to preserve our property is essentially what it was. And so when we look at Locke and Hobbes, understand that the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, that's all Locke, right? Locke comes up with this idea of natural rights, and the Bill of Rights is also Locke, right? So make sure you know that John Locke is a big part of our government. While he's not a huge part of the Constitution, he is a huge part of the amendments, which would be the Bill of Rights, and he was a huge part of the Declaration of Independence. Now, Thomas Hobbes, he's a big part of the Constitution because we saw what happened with Shays' Rebellion, right? People left unchecked go nuts. They go crazy. They freaking try to overthrow a state as farmers. That's no good. And so we had to create a strong central government, a stronger central government than we had in the Articles, because we knew men inherently were what Hobbes said, which are self-serving. So make sure you know the difference between Locke and Hobbes, and make sure you know that they both advocated to have a social contract, consent to be governed. Just Hobbes was giving up a lot of rights, and Locke said we're going to consent to be governed, but we're not giving up these unalienable, these natural rights. Okay? Specific powers in the House and the Senate, not on your test, so you don't have to worry about it. So it's really like the top 9 topics of the Unit 1 test. So specific powers of the House and the Senate, you all know them for the most part, right? You know the House does originate revenue bills and impeach the president, and the Senate's ratify treaties, approve appointments, and hold the trial, but you don't need to know it for the test, so congrats. You will need to know it soon, though, so just kind of keep it in your back pocket. Now, the specific powers of Congress, you do need to know that, and you also need to know specific limitations on Congress, so maybe we could add that as another topic. But specific powers of Congress are in Article 1, Section 8. If you can't list 4 of those right now, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to waste my time. Google it. Go Google it, or look in your book. It's unbelievable. You should know all. Harika, I know Harika doesn't know them. So Harika, call one of your friends. Dina probably knows. Maybe JP if he's not playing Overwatch, but Google it. I'm not telling you. Okay. Limitations, though, I will tell you about this, right? Because we do have a limited government, and one of the ways we know that is Article 1, Section 9 tells Congress what they cannot do, and you need to know a few of those things. Number 1, Congress can't pass a bill of attainder. They can't write a law that puts someone in prison. That is really, really bad. It denies a lot of basic rights, like a trial and habeas corpus. They can't deny habeas corpus. Habeas corpus is essentially telling someone why they're in jail. We have to let people know why they're in jail. We have to give them this habeas corpus. Here are the reasons why you're in jail right now. You killed someone, you have to be in jail. But we can't just take someone and throw them in jail. That's no good. That gives way too much power to the federal government. And ex post facto law, that would be really, really powerful as well. We can't go around passing laws that say, collared shirts are illegal, and anyone that wore one in the last year is going to have to pay a $1,000 fine. That's way too much power to the federal government. So those are 3 ways we limit the government. Some other ways would be in the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is all about limiting the government. Okay. Powers of the president. Another thing, if you don't know, just go Google it. Right. If you don't want to Google it, here you go. In 5 to 10 seconds, I'll tell you everything I know about the powers of the federal government or the president. So the president can veto, pardon criminals, call a special session of Congress, write treaties, appoint judges, appoint ambassadors. He can recognize the existence of a country, which is awesome. That would be something I would abuse like crazy. There's some other stuff that the president can do. Go Google it. It's not hard. You know 4 or 5 of them. Easy stuff, right? Now, the one power you do need to know backwards and forwards is not going to be in Congress. It's not going to be in the executive branch. It's going to be in Article 3, judicial branch. But when you look at Article 3, you realize, hey, the judicial branch really doesn't have any power. So where does all their power come from? Their power comes from a court case called Marbury, not Mayberry, Marbury versus Madison. Marbury versus Madison. You absolutely need to know Marbury versus Madison establishes judicial review. And you need to know the definition of judicial review. That would be, it gives the Supreme Court the ability to rule a piece of legislation from Congress or a presidential act unconstitutional. It's a huge, huge power, and it was established in Marbury versus Madison. You need to know that. All right? Article 4 of the Constitution deals with states. Article 5 is how to amend the Constitution. Amending the Constitution is 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of states. That's the only way it's ever been done. So 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of states. The states could call another constitutional convention. We've had 2, one when the Articles were created and one when the Constitution was. So if the states wanted to do that, they could, but they haven't done it in a very, very long time, so they probably won't. Make sure you know checks and balances. Make sure you know